welcome to another edition of Grace Under Pressure, where my guest today is Dr. Ruth Gotian. I'll tell you all about Ruth in just a moment. Grace Under Pressure is that show that deals with what's too often dismissed as the soft stuff, the caring, the commitment we exert for others. When you do it from a leadership position, as you will definitely discover that Dr. Ruth Gotian is, you do it with for common cause to bring people together. So, Dr. Ruth Gotian, welcome to Grace Under Pressure.
It's so great to be here again. I'm excited.
Ruth is I think my first three-time guest. So
it's a three-peat.
It's a three-peat. You got it. I'm going to tell everybody about you. Dr. Ruth Gotian is a Chief Learning Officer and Associate Professor of Education in Anesthesiology at Cornell Weill. She's globally recognized as an expert in mentoring. Her first book was The Success Factor, which was a box office smash, or at least for me it was, wonderful profiles of people who had succeeded and how they did it. And she is, like me, a member of 100 Coaches, founded by Marshall Goldsmith. Thinkers 50 ranked her as the #1 emerging management thinker in the world in 2021, which is a big deal, folks. That's the real deal. And she's a top voice in mentoring, as per LinkedIn. Her new book is called The Financial Times Guide to Mentoring, and it's co-authored with Andy Lopata. Welcome, Ruth Gotian.
Thank you so much. And thanks for writing that brilliant review of the Financial Times Guide to Mentoring, which appeared in Forbes. My publisher is so excited, as am I.
Well, great. Well, it's much deserved. So you are, and I can say this because other people say it, you're an expert in mentoring, an authority on the topic. So, and the wonderful thing about your book is it talks about mentoring at different levels, early, mid, and late career, and the importance of it. And you also talk about how to structure programs. This is a real how-to book, not simply for mentors, but for HR people or executives who want to create a mentoring program. And that's why it's such a wonderful resource. So just to level set real quick, Ruth, we often, or some people, not me, conflate mentoring and coaching. Could you explain the difference, please?
Yes. So it means different things, but the reality is you should be doing both. Mentoring is more long-term. It's more strategic. It's where you want to go in the future. It's seeing far past the horizon. And your mentor is there to show you the way past the horizon that you can see, because they see things that you can't. They're the ones who are giving you the tools. They are giving you they cheer you on and really push you in the direction that you need to go. The coaching is more nuanced. It's usually to work on specific things that you are bringing forward, and it's usually for a defined period of time. So usually there are engagements, 6 months, 12 months, et cetera, while mentoring can go on for years and years and years. Usually people will have, and what we advocate for is to have multiple mentors, what we call a mentoring team, where usually people don't have more than one coach at a time.
Great.
Unless they're athletes.
You come from the world of academic medicine, which I think in some ways is kind of a pioneer in the theory of, in the philosophy, or in the approach to mentoring, but it is expanding worldwide, globally, as well as into the corporate sector and nonprofit sector and all of those things. So let's focus on the first thing we think about mentoring, which is early mentor, or young adult, or not young adult, but early career mentoring. How do we do that?
Yeah, and you're right. It's definitely has a stronghold in the corporate culture. Now, 98% of Fortune 500 companies have mentoring programs. Now, people think of mentoring, they think absolutely it is for the Gen Z, the people who are just starting in their careers. And it's usually, okay, I have my first job, I'm right out of school. How do I get to that next thing? And they're thinking 2, 3, 4 years down the line. And that's great. And that's, the bread and butter of so many. It's who are the people you should know? What are some of the things you should be doing? What are some of the committees or groups you should be joining? It's very tactical. Here are the things you should be doing right away. And you might even see the results in a very short order because there are these things that you can do right away to really stand out. And really, if you are new, if you're a junior employee, if you just do one or two of these things, you're going to stand out compared to everyone else because most people aren't doing it. So you will definitely make yourself stand out.
Well, that is a wonderful answer, and it's what I think many people think of. Now, let's talk about the mid-career because I can see, you've been in the world, you've been in the world for a long time, been in your career, I don't know, 15, 20 years, I don't know, however one measures mid-career. So, and you've been around the block a few times and been knocked down more than a few times. And so when the topic of mentoring comes up, you go, do I really need this, Ruth?
Yeah.
So tell me why. So
Yeah, you definitely do because mid-career is where you spend most of your time. And that's where people are usually it's stagnant, right? Because you just sit there and you're waiting for things to happen. And the mentor will show you how to take the reins instead of waiting for things to happen, instead of waiting for people to notice your accomplishments. They're going to show you how you can make yourself known, how you can make yourself stand out, how you can be seen as a thought leader, a project manager, an expert in your domain. They will also help you structure things so that when an opportunity arises, you are ready to throw your hat in the ring. And if you don't feel you are ready, they will show you why you are and push you to throw your hat in the ring. They will also show you in mid career what are the things you can do to put yourself for an opportunity that doesn't even exist yet because you have identified a gap. You will show them how you will close that gap because of all the great things you have done at this point. And that's how you can get promoted for an opportunity that doesn't even exist yet.
I love that idea about, it's kind of that mid-career regeneration of where one is and what one can do. And as you were saying, I thought about the concept of allyship and
Yeah.
sponsorship. Are those elements of mentoring, Ruth?
Sponsorship absolutely is. So sponsorship is that mentoring on steroids. It's when someone talks about you in a good way in rooms you're not in. They are the ones who are nominating you for promotions, choice assignments, committees, awards. You need these people because they are the ones who are going to talk to you, to the decision makers. They're going to say, I think you need to look at John because John is doing things in a way no one else is doing it. John is thinking about things in a way we haven't even recognized. He's identifying problems we haven't seen yet, but he sees them and has solutions for them. You need that. And then after the sponsorship is fruitful, right? And by the way, anyone can be a sponsor. You can also do this on social media for someone who's junior to you and at your level. But after that sponsorship becomes fruitful and you get that promotion or that choice assignment or whatever it is, they set you up for success because it goes from mentor to sponsor back to mentor, right? Because it's circular, because they are going to make sure you are prepared to succeed at that choice assignment or promotion or whatever it is.
I love that description of it. So, some of us, not you, are closer to the ends of our career. And so, is there even a place for mentorship at career end? And how would
Yes.
that take place?
Absolutely. And my co-author and I, Andy Lapato, we just wrote an article for Fast Company about why CEOs need mentors. And the reason that CEOs need mentors is because it is so lonely at the top. Because as you start working, right, it becomes like a pyramid. And the further up you go in a hierarchy, the fewer positions there are, the fewer people who are like you, and the fewer people who will tell you the truth. Because people try to shield leaders from the truth because nobody wants to get the boss upset. And as a result, they have no one around them to bounce ideas off of to say, will this work? Is this really a problem? Is this solution feasible? And that's why they need mentors to help them think through those things.
That's a great thing. And I was caught in on a story from me where many years ago, I was speaking to a group of CEOs, and I just threw out the comment that, in your organizations, you really don't have any friends. And they start almost throwing things at me. And I said, okay, let's measure this. How many of you in this room are responsible for the employment and the compensation of your senior people? And they all go, yeah, you're right. And I go, you may be friendly, but it's not an equal relationship. So you talked about very important. Now, let's get to the heart of the matter here. So how do I, if I'm interested in being a mentor, how do I build that relationship? So
If you want to be the mentor.
yes.
So just that you know, most formal mentoring programs where there is a matching process, which is the way it's done in most organizations, they're okay, but they're not much better than that, with one caveat.
Okay, that's
All
kind of
right.
like it's at one level, and it's not Neiman Marcus. So
It's not yet, but this is what Andy and I help organizations do. So there are mentoring programs because we know it works. There's a ton of research for over a quarter of a century that shows the benefits of mentoring. People who are mentored out-earn, outperform those who are not. They make more money, have lower burnout. It's great for the organization. I mean, everything points in the direction. So the organization said, yes, let's do a mentoring program. That makes sense. As a result, they set up these mentoring programs and they will say, John, you're in 100 coaches. Ruth, you're in 100 coaches. Let's match you up because, of course, everyone in 100 coaches is exactly the same, except we're not. Except we're not. Not everyone who goes to the same school is the same. Not everyone who's from the same city or state is the same. And these matches are often random. And what happens is, if you're lucky, it's okay. But if you're not, then what do you do? And the problem is there is no off ramp for these bad mentoring relationships. And what we know from the research is that if the mentoring does not work out, then those people, the mentees, are less likely to look for a new mentor because they have already been burned. But we know that mentoring is so necessary to advance in a career. So we want to make sure that it works. So if you want to mentor somebody who is, to find a mentee, look for somebody whose ideas excite you, right? Because if you're excited by their ideas and they are excited by their ideas, it's more likely to work well. It's
And
very
you
hard to get excited about someone else's ideas.
if my memory serves from our last interview, or I've heard you say this before, you have an interesting story from none other than Dr. Tony Fauci about this. So please tell us that. So,
Yes. So I am a social scientist who interviews and I study extreme high achievers. So it's Nobel Prize winners and astronauts and Olympians. And one of the people who I got to chat with was Dr. Tony Fauci. And this was pre-COVID. And I said to him, I said, Dr. Fauci, I said, how do you select which projects to work on? Because remember, he was at the forefront of HIV, AIDS, Zika, SARS, Ebola. This is all before COVID, right? And he said, I look for something that's important, not just interesting. Because if it's interesting, it'll be a hobby. But if it's important, it'll have a ripple effect and have the potential to impact millions of people I will never have the opportunity to meet. And in fact,
powerful.
when I sign copies of the Success Factor, that's what I write. Do something important, not just interesting.
That's where I've heard you say that. And it's
Yeah.
a great story. And I remember it from the book. So let's, I always like to think of mentoring as a reciprocal process. And so
Yes.
if I'm the mentee, how do I be a good one?
Yes. So here's the thing. Okay. If you remember nothing else, I want you to remember this. First of all, you never, ever, ever ask anyone to be your mentor. Because if you're asking them to be your mentor, you're asking them to take on another obligation. And nobody's got that kind of time for yet another thing on the to-do list. But if you come up with a specific request and tell the person why you want to speak to them about it and let them know how long it's going to take, that's totally different. So here's an example. John, I just came out with a new book, Financial Times Guide to Mentoring. And I'm thinking of launching a LinkedIn Live series to talk about some of the components of the book and interview with the people who are in the book. I already looked into, I have access to LinkedIn Live. I have access to StreamYard. I can access the interviews, but I think there's still some pieces that I'm missing. And I'd like to make sure that I'm not reactive, that I'm proactive. I know you have a very successful LinkedIn Live series. Could I talk to you for about 20 minutes? I can show you what I've already done and you can tell me what I'm missing. It's
No.
very different. Totally different, right?
Yeah.
Because I told you why I'm reaching out to you. I showed you that you have expertise. So it's not like you're a random person, right? And I told you how long it's going to take. Now, here's the next step. We meet, and then I incorporate number 1, 3, and 5, but decide not to incorporate 2 and 4. I reach back to you, John, thank you so much for meeting with me. I followed through and I implemented numbers 1, 3, and 5, these suggestions. I chose not to implement 2 and 4 because, right? And now it shows you I heard everything you said. I don't need to agree with everything. I don't need to implement it, but there's a reason why I chose not to implement it. And I can share that. And then now we're continuing a discussion. And people like to help those who continue that conversation and show that they're listening, right? It's more than just being a sounding board. It's circular. That's what it's all about.
Absolutely. Now, you raised something very interesting about that. Don't ask someone to be a mentor. And what you've
Mhm.
talked about, and it's a great hook, if I will, but it may lead to a very, very short term, even transactional connection. Is that still part of the mentoring process, Ruth? So,
Well, we do not want it to be transactional because when it's transactional, as you said, it is one way. It is not reciprocal. And trust me, a mentee can help a mentor. There are Nobel Prize winners who are getting help from their mentees, right? There's always something that you can share. And if you make it transactional, it feels slimy. It feels like I want to take a shower when it's over because it just feels icky. That it should never be transactional. Mentoring is about building a relationship. And that is why I collaborated with Andy Lapata because he is Europe's expert at professional relationships. You can't have mentoring without having that relationship. Now, you have never asked someone, will you be my friend? You just are. So if you don't ask someone to be your friend, why would you ask them to be your mentor?
good point. Great, interesting. Now let's get into where your book is different from other books on mentoring, and that's the programmatic aspect of it. So I'm interested. I'm reading your book. What's my first step, or what things do I need to consider to establish a mentoring program?
So this is the book that doesn't just tell you why it's important, but we included templates and worksheets and scripts and case studies. So you can pull what you need at the time that you need it. Everyone's mentoring program is in a different state. Some have done absolutely nothing, and some have a pretty robust organization and just want to take it to the next level. So it's filled with whatever you need, those worksheets, those templates. Has anyone trained the mentors in how to do this effectively? We tell you how to do that. Do the mentors talk to each other so that they can learn from each other? We talk about that as well. So there's different layers that it can be done. The one thing I will tell those who do run mentoring programs, I highly recommend that someone provide mentoring to the mentors, right? And create this master mentor program and also allow them to learn from each other. I also recommend having an exit ramp when mentoring relationships don't work or a mentor leaves, right? And we strongly advocate instead of doing one to one mentoring, have mentoring teams. This allows you to scale it and this allows people to learn from each other.
So interesting, the mentoring team, so that if I'm a mentee, I may have three mentors. Is that how it would work,
I
Ruth?
have 7.
Well, you're special, Ruth. I'm only
Well,
asking
no,
for
you know
three.
why? Because they're from different fields. I have from medicine, from military, from education. from law because at different times I need different things. And I'm able to pull on the people who I need and learn from their expertise. When I was writing, and you've written many books, you first have to put a book proposal together. I showed it to my mentor who wrote many books to get the feedback. When it was time to negotiate the contract, I showed it to my mentor who's a lawyer and say, what are some of the things I need to say, right? So you want to be able to utilize and leverage the brilliance of your mentors, and each one has something else that they can offer.
Toward that end, I just thought of, how do I give back to my mentor?
Oh, that's so great. So many things that you can do. One of them, it would be share what you have learned from your mentor. What are those pearls of wisdom that you have learned from your mentor? Pass it on. Pass it on. Dr. Bob Lefkowitz, who he's had over 350 mentees now. Yes. And he won the Nobel Prize in 2012 in chemistry. And fun fact, who shared the Nobel Prize with him? Because the Nobel in the sciences, it's usually 2 to 3 people who get it. It was shared with his former mentee. And I said, "Bob, was that strange?" He said, "Strange." He said, "That's how I mark my success, is how well my mentees do. This is a badge of honor." So now what he did when he had, I think it was, he just had his 80th birthday, I think during his 60th or 70th, they brought the Bob Lefkowitz mentoring tree. So it's people that he's mentored and the people that they've mentored and the people that they've mentored, and they all got together. There's like
Oh,
700 people.
what a
And you
great,
could see that the mentoring from one person and how it trickled down, right?
that's, I would say that's a story of grace, but we'll save that for just a moment there. Great. So now, okay, I've got my mentoring program. It's been going for a year, but I'm sensing maybe a little lack of enthusiasm or whatever. How do I sustain it? How do I keep it vigorous, Ruth? So,
This is going back to having multiple people mentor in those mentoring circles, those mentoring teams. That's a lot easier than one-to-one because sometimes we get busy and I just do not have time or do not have the energy or do not have the focus to be able to talk to one person about what they want. But here is someone else who can, and we can learn from each other, and I could pop in as needed. And I think there are other different ways where people can learn from each other. We share what worked, what didn't work, ideas. It's about sharing that learning and development work that we do, sharing it with each other, because if I see John succeeding, I'm going to want to amp it up and succeed as well.
great. So, one of the beauties of your book, and you touched on it, are the worksheets and the scripts. So, I found them kind of a paint by numbers, and I don't mean dismissive. I don't mean to be dismissive when I say that, but it gives you a kickstart as to how to get rolling. So, what was your thinking behind doing the exercises and the worksheets and things like that? So,
Yeah. So, look, I am by training, I do adult learning and leadership. I can tell you what to do, but I know most people won't do it. But if I make it easy for you to apply, you're significantly more likely to actually do it. So the point was to make it as easy as possible. And that's what we did.
right. One of the things I have heard about mentees is, and that's the reciprocity part of it, but it's also the commitment to it.
Yeah.
So it's not, having a mentor is not simply having a notch on one's belt or a resume builder. Um, there's an obligation there. Tell us about the obligation that a mentee has to a mentor. So,
Yeah. Look, a mentor is donating their time to help you in your career. You have got to show gratitude. You have to show that you appreciate them taking their time. You don't have to implement everything that they suggest, but you should have a reason. And I didn't have time is not a reason. Show that you are thoughtful, saying, I implemented these things because it was low hanging fruit, These other things I thought would take more preparation, so I wanted to give myself time to do it effectively and not rush to it, right? You want to give the reason behind why you're doing this and give credit where credit is due, because mentors usually don't get in the limelight at all, but nothing makes them happier than seeing their mentees succeed. But, throw a little sun their way.
No, that's great. I like that. We all like to be thanked, whether we really
Yeah,
feel
what a
it or not.
concept.
And it's such a simple thing to do.
Yeah.
Now, let me just answer a tactical and practical question, because I've actually heard two different sides of it. If I have a mentoring relationship with my mentor, who sets up the appointments? Is it the mentee or the mentor? So,
Yeah, I think the mentee has to be the driving force in all of this. They're the ones who set the time. They're the ones who come in with the agenda. They should let the mentor know in advance what it is they want to discuss. They should ask, look, if we're meeting on Tuesday, but I have a question on Thursday, can I still reach out to you? The answer should always be yes, right? You may not respond to them right away, but they should be able to reach out to you with a question, because it doesn't work so well when it's just every other Tuesday at 4 o'clock. Our life isn't built that way. Sometimes we have questions on a Friday.
right, right. Well, I think there's an obligation, there's a commitment, and be active in it. And I think the word you didn't use, but it came to my mind, but it's all through your book: prepare, prepare, prepare. So
Yes, absolutely.
great.
Absolutely.
Now, sadly, Ruth, I could keep going on here with our conversation, but we're coming to the end. And as you know, I ask every guest a story about grace. Is there one you'd like to share with us today?
Yeah, it's actually one that happened to me 6 months ago. I submitted the manuscript for this book. I went to London for Thinkers 50, gave a big keynote, writing articles, still, have my day job, have my family. I was burning the candle at both ends, and I was about to crack. And within a 2-week period, now let me go back and say, I'm very good at sleeping. I need my sleep. I know I need my sleep, but I also work really, really hard, and I'm not good at taking time off. It's just, I start climbing the walls. Within a 2-week period, a Nobel Prize winner, an Olympic medalist, and an NBA champion all told me that I need to pause, take a break, go away for a few days. That almost gave me the permission to stop. And I went away for 4 days, put my laptop in the hotel safe, didn't take it out once, but I needed it. It was like a security blanket, right? Didn't take it out even once. All I did was read a book, and it was perfect. And I got back to work.
Great. That's such a wonderful story, because it's essentially, well, two parts of grace there, that the three people, all important, all busy people, shared their insight with you.
Yeah.
But then you made grace for yourself, which I think often we kind of ignore.
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
we aren't asked. Grace is given to us with no strings attached, but we share it with other people, yes. But how about sharing it with ourselves at times? So that's a wonderful story. Ruth, two things: where can people find your book, and where can people find you? So
Yes. So the latest book is called Financial Times Guide to Mentoring. Wherever you love buying books, it's there. If you go to mentoring-guide.com, you can see where you can buy it all over the world. You can download the first chapter for free, and there's an assessment that you can take if you're in a mentoring relationship to see how strong it is and where there might be areas to enhance it. And then if you want to find me, I am all over social media, and my website is just my name, ruthgotian.com.
great. Well, that's wonderful. And I forgot to mention that self-assessment is a valuable tool, and it's a form of, it'll challenge your own thinking. So is this really working, or what should I do differently, or evaluate it for a positive effect. Dr. Ruth Gotian, it has been such a pleasure to have you on this telecast this podcast talking about your new book, The Financial Times Guide to Mentoring. It's an all-in-one book. If there's one book on mentoring, this is the book. So with
That was
that,
the goal.
we will sign off and thank you. So
Thank you so much, John.